Do we ultimately dominate the relationship with these organic portals? I saw a video recently, yes. I'm copying the video title, but obviously not the words, because the video was by a channel called Birds Set Free. It's a girl or a lady or a female. And I felt that you or she didn't, actually do any real explaining or didn't go very deep. And in my opinion, it was a waste of time watching your video. I know that might sound harsh, but I say that because if I click on your video and with like that title, I'm thinking, well, that's a big title, so you should have like a good big explanation sort of thing. Anyway, I don't want to get stuck on that. I just felt I didn't get much from the video, so I should do my own one. And here we are. So do we ultimately dominate the relationship with the organic portals? Well, I was thinking about, let's go through the thought process, because you guys seem to enjoy when I take you through it. Like I haven't premeditated the video. I just then turned on the video, excuse me, because I thought, okay, I think I have an answer. Because I've been thinking about it for the last few weeks. It's only a few weeks ago she published the video. So I think before I conclude anything, and that's not like, some penultimate conclusion, I could still be wrong. But so as you can see, I'm keeping an open mind, although I did feel I reached a conclusion, and I feel my channel has reached a conclusion. All right, stuff it, let's say it then. I think yes, because if you're a complexity knot and a forward positive soul vector, you are the path that the universe is actually choosing. So that's why all the magic happens with the hero in the story, or the hero in the movie or the book. Do you understand? The hero archetype is always getting like massive synchronistic events and like unseen help and so on, And it's like that so that the, conglomerate of bad guys can't predict where the help is going to come from and so on. And that makes it super extra complex. And that's why I think ultimately the answer is yes, we dominate the relationship with them ultimately. But in daily life, as you guys know, there's more of them than there is of us, the organic portals. So because there's more of them and there's less of us, I find it really difficult. You all know I'm out here camping, and that's fantastic because I don't have to deal with them, you see. I don't even have to go ahead and deal with them, and it's difficult. I have to, in my opinion, I don't care, maybe you have a different opinion, but I think it's difficult to deal with them if you truly understand what's going on. Because there's so many naive people who are like, yeah, I'm a pro, I'm so good at dealing with organic portals, but then they're the same people who are like NPC'd out. It's like they're burnt out, just going to a regular job, regular life, no magnus opus, and that's what it comes down to. That's why I always talk about it. It comes down to how much magnus opus focus do you really have? How much great work focus do you really have? Because that's what they're trying to take away. Yeah, they're trying to steal your life force energy and all that business and, take you off your path and blah, blah, blah. But do you see why? And they're trying to stop your vision with, from, the material world with the bad food and all that, and the calcification of pineals, fluoride in the water, all of it. So it all boils down to one thing, though, that they're trying to stop your focus on your magnus opus, or like great work, or like the purpose you came here for, your perspective of insertion into this reality, like what you have to leave behind, your corpus of light work, your corpus, your body of work. So, I was thinking to go from that end to the conclusion now, because I didn't want to do that first and conclude. I think ultimately yes. But let's talk about this and think about this for a minute. They're everywhere, and it's just all the time. They don't stop looking. It's forever. It's every day, all day. It's more than you can suppose. You always think, oh, okay, I've calculated it in. How can another OP, suddenly do something this afternoon? You know what I mean? And then it happens. Some stupid event goes down, some energy stealing, some, I don't know, blocking events, some cornering you, some, mass gang stalk event on you or something. It happens and you're like, oh my God, again, more. And they just don't stop. They're literally the machines. I've said that they're the placeholders for the robots, the physical robots, and that's why they act like robots. If you understand the theory of resonance, then you should understand that, how they are already basically the robots. Yes, they have the mineral. It's a mineral body, this body, yeah. So it's called Cyborgicus organicus. It's an organic cyborg, but is definitely made of metals. I've got a chart that I could show you, and is definitely made of metals. I don't want to show you in this video, but we're going to do a whole video on that. But there's tons of metals. There's so many. However many there are, I don't know all the metals. This chart has like 40, 50 metals. And it just made me realize, I didn't even know all the metals. And yeah, it's amazing, they're really a machine body, and what we say is that organic portals are only their body. And you have all these events where you see these same people, like you see 10 people in a row doing the same thing, like they might be driving the same car with the same sort of look or something, and it makes you go, what the hell was that? What's going on? And that's the thing that everyone is like, oh, clones. But it's not that they're being pumped out of a clone factory by the Illuminati, although that's going to happen by like 2040, 2050. Do you see what I'm saying? That will actually happen. And they're going to create chimeras and everything. That's already happening. Pigs with human genes and all that. And, that will happen. But what I'm saying is it's like somehow the Matrix is doing it now. And if you understand resonance theory and how, past and future periods are in resonance with each other, then you can see that very clearly, that they're already robots. They are already like a robot, a spiritless body, which is just like robotic. It's reactionary to the universe, They're not in a creationary mode. So I was thinking, do we dominate it? Because that was my first thinking. Well, there's so many of them, and it's just all the time. It's all day, and they just always appear. It appears like magic, right? It's like they're always there at the perfect time, just when you want peace. And remember my video from like 2 years ago, when do organic portals attack? And I was saying when you cross the 0 point. And I still believe that. It's like when you get to full relaxation point, they suddenly appear to agitate you back up. There's this stupid channel out there called Reincarnation Aborted, and that dude is just stuffing up the whole movement. He's like, oh yeah, like organic portals, they are true teachers, and yes, they can teach you stuff, but ultimately you are your own true teacher. And I like the quote, no man may pass through you but through you. You understand? That's if you are your own minded entity. And some people it's like they half use their soul, and then they're half like lazy and inured because it's difficult. I've had to push so much to be any sort of concrescence at all. And that's what a concrescence is. It's pushing up through the entropical field. That's what vectorization is. So you have to push hard. So it's not like, oh yeah, Ben, you're so awesome. No, it's difficult to do anything that I do. And, yes, they are adversarial and they help that process, but you can't go ahead and like make them the good guys. You're going to ruin the whole movement, and you're going to bring in the NPCs into the organic portal movement, and then us tougher teachers, the real master teachers like me and some other channels, they're just going to, dislike, and it's going to ruin the whole movement, I'm telling you. Anyway, back to what we're talking about. Well, that's relevant actually. So there's, it's not just the organic portals, it's people acting like organic portals, and people who are too weak in their own spiritual path that they have no choice. They have to work for them. They have to say, yes, sir. Do you see what I mean? They have to say, yes, sir. They have to fall in line. And when they do that, they become them. They become like them. There's barely any differentiation. There's like no differentiation at that point, because you've taken on their motifs. You're working for them. That saying, people do the job for the man, So, I mean, that's why it's so difficult, and that's what I was first thinking. So, does that mean we dominate the relationship? Because, I mean, it's just forever difficult odds, right? And then I thought, well, look, if we're the concrescences, though, the soul-spirited humans, we're the vectors, positive soul vectors, that means the universe chooses you. And I thought about that hero archetype in movies and books and blah, 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 just in my experience as well. And you get this unseen help. It's always miraculous, and it's so that they can't predict you. And that's part of the base theory, that we're more complex than them. So, in the end, I have to say we do ultimately dominate, but that's ultimately. On the way, I don't know. You know what I mean? So ultimately, in the end, yes, because if you're like that on the higher path, you're on the higher path. You've already basically made it, because you've realized that there is a way out, there is a higher path, and so on. You're on that matrix escape velocity style, right? So it might take you a different length of time to me and to the next guy, but you've realized the exit door. You know what I mean? So ultimately, even just at that level, you've already kind of made it. But then you don't stop pushing there, obviously. So my point is, I think we do ultimately dominate it, because we are the conscious ones and they are the unconscious ones. And then I thought about another point. Because they all act the same, because they are predictable, you can dominate them if you have massive discipline. But you have to have really, really hardcore discipline. It has to be very sturdy. And that, I think, is like a major player. That's like the major Uno card or something, That's a big card to play, the discipline. Because you want to knock their ass out. You want to yell at them. You want to get angry and so on. But then you even realize after a while, oh, hold on, that's even them getting me. Because that's them lowering your vibration. So they even got you there. See, the traps are endless. That's why initially I thought, do we even dominate the relationship? It's hard to say, isn't it? But I think ultimately yes, because we're the vectors and we make it and we escape and all that. And we are consciousness and they are unconsciousness. So even if there's a massive conglomerate and a massive number of them, their collective unconscious creation, the outgoes, looking out into the world, of the world, horizontal, not spiritually vertical within themselves, and the indigos are collective conscious creation. So, ultimately, it's a difficult conclusion to make, but I would say ultimately yes, but I could be wrong. And you can see it in a different way. You can see it as no, we don't, because on the day-to-day, there's just endless traps and you can get caught up so easy. And we do get caught up so easy, and there are just so many caveats. Like my brothers and sisters who are awake out there, I see them, and me myself, but I see people just falling into the silliest caveats, of a lot of laziness to push, to become more, to become better, to become more conscious. That's the major problem, like a lack of push. And that's why I always keep saying on my channel, positive soul vector or positive spirited vector, right? And that's not what the organic portals are. They're not vectoring at all. They're more stabilization, they're more atrophy or the entropical field at best, but not even the entropical field. Because that picture by Veil of Reality, where we've all seen the picture of the missing upper chakras, they're not drawn in with the color. And OP mimics the higher centers of the soul human, that picture. Well, the point is that it says on top of that picture, I think very aptly, very correctly, it says soul potential. That's the entropical field. You have entered the entropy, you can make the choices, but will you? Will you force it forward? And I see a lot of people just caught in the system, they have to go to work and so on. That's why if you're on the higher path, it's probably the best idea to avoid family life. And I mean generally. And I always see organic portals are much closer to their family, and the real hardcore soul humans are always in their own sort of own world, right? Like me, I'm just out here in my own world. I've got all day to think. I don't really talk to relatives or anything, you know what I mean? It's like you have to dump the family unit. And yeah, it's very interesting because that's just an extra vectorization. I know how it sounds and it's sad, right? Because we have this innate sort of compassion and empathy. It's sad to want to, they're close to you, they've helped you, they've fed you, they've put food in your stomach. The ego wants you to, and that's the caveat of the ego that people don't see. People think, oh, Ben, you're so ego because how arrogant I sometimes talk, but that's not the only part of the ego. The ego is also the part which makes you feel sad about leaving your family and being comfortable, right? So, and you have to admit that. And for that part, I think a lot of people are struggling. Like, a lot of people can't admit it's their mum, it's their dad, it's their brother or their sister who might be an organic portal. And every organic portal is at some point an agent to you, or just like a person putting you off your path and or testing you. Yes, there's tests and stuff, and that doesn't mean they're good though. Yeah, it can be a fantastic thing to be tested to bring you more consciousness, but ultimately, like, it's still a kind of annoyance sometimes. Yes, it does help you build up and all that, but I mean, it's not just that we're seeing an invisible boogeyman. That boogeyman is really there, is what I'm saying. That, there really are these demons using these organic portals as pawns, and, it's real. And just because other people don't admit it or can't see it doesn't mean it's not. You're not nuts for seeing it. It just means you've got an extra sight. You can see more, an extra, in my opinion. And you might disagree, okay? But please don't hate on me, because what if I am discovering something new, something next, or something, what if that can help you? You're going to regret, hating on me later. But anyway, so do we ultimately, dominate the relationship with them? Like, I have to say yes, because you get to a point where you become conscious of your consciousness, and that you realize, okay, I can't go back. I can't unenlighten. I can't really go back to sleep. It's like you're pushing against that. You can't. It's like it's harder to push backwards, and the vector of the arrow of time is forward, but I think the mental state is always forward as well, not just like the time arrow, but your evolution is forward. So it's like you can't go back. Now, in the 2020s, a lot of people are going to dismiss this organic portal theme. There's going to be a massive want for material goods, because the world's going to get hyperinflation. Everything's going to, you've got rich people showing you how great their life is, all of that. And there's going to be people going back to sleep. But they were the entropical soul potentials. They were never the real concrescences. So now you're going to start to see people like me, the real concrescences, the real positive soul forward vectors. We're going to stand out more and more, I think. Wait and see. Let's see. But I think so. But, there's a point where you become, conscious of your consciousness, and conscious of your, higher path and all this, of your conscious of, your consciousness, right? You're conscious that you're, more aware than them and all this. And I think at that point, that's where you can start to dominate them. Because then if you use discipline a lot, you start to discipline yourself to make sure that you don't fall in the traps, and you can learn the traps. But is there too many to learn? No, I don't think so. Because they all act the same, I don't think there are too many traps to learn. Because they're all fairly general, and they always are the same. It always happens fairly similarly through a different person. But they're always very similar situations. So, ultimately, I think we ultimately dominate the relationship with the organic portals. And like I say on my channel, I think it's their apocalypse, because they're not capable of being steered and guided. It's like we've evolved our brain up to a certain point. The universe has evolved this body to a certain point, that it's okay, all the people that I can't put my cosmic truth into their neocortex and qualify their ego, they have to go. And they're the people being purged. And that's how it's like a matrix reset and all this, matrix reset. So don't be the harvested. You've got to keep pushing. And, they always want to make you feel like it's okay, nothing's happening. But then you look at all the news and you see that it's getting worse. and that thousands of years ago they even predicted this time and called it the apocalypse and all that. Now remember, I'm not even religious. So for me to say that is like, I'm actually siding with, random Bible people. I haven't even read the book. But I can see it from my own experience. That's what I'm saying. But they're like, oh, there's no apocalypse. That's just fear-mongering. And so you have to choose a side. And at some point you do, right? And you wake up and you become more conscious of it. And that's what I mean. At some point you really become more and more conscious of your consciousness and more conscious about the idea of organic portals and how they work and the hive mind and how they're like, some of them are even like clones. They're just like almost exactly the same and they just seem mindless. And so how can these mindless people beat you if you're like super conscious? See, it's just like plateaus of this. And I swear as you plateau up, it becomes, yes, more difficult in a way. You get the bigger bosses in the game, but you also become more conscious and you can dominate like more of the conglomerate. For instance, here's an example that's non-spiritual. The fact that I learned IT, information technology, now means on the internet I have certain skills that half the world's population doesn't. So in this environment I can dominate half the world's population. Do you understand? And that's a non-spiritual example. So what I'm saying is when you become like very disciplined and conscious, that's more of a spiritual example. And then you get, when you plateau it to a certain level, that's like a certain percentage of the population who you then basically dominate or could. Because you're more conscious, you can orchestrate the situation. And it takes a lot of discipline, but ultimately you can, you see. So I don't know, I'm keen to conclude that we do dominate the relationship with them, even though day to day it seems like you don't, right? But if you look very carefully and, in the context of what I've said here, it seems that, in a way we do. Because you see day to day your events and it's like, it seems hopeless. But I do think there is light at the end of the tunnel and you have to keep going forward. It's a forward escape. And so, I mean, ultimately, because that's the word we're using, ultimately then, that means ultimately, you do dominate and you do escape and so on, right? Even if during the days, the means to the end, so to speak, it seems like maybe you don't day to day. But I don't know. I think even sometimes day to day, I realize I do. For instance, would you call it dominating the relationship if I'm gang stalked all day by these helicopters and planes and stuff, but then I get a YouTube career out of it? And then ultimately in, 10 years from now, maybe I can monetize the channel and get like a lot of money per month from just the advertising. Do you know what I mean? Well, that's another example of me dominating them. So it's just like, if you play it really, really smart and really consciously, I think we can and we do dominate them. So I don't know, that's my conclusion for now. It's not some, penultimate conclusion that can't be changed, but it's definitely not a priori conclusion because I've considered factors. So, when you write an essay at university, you consider factors and then you conclude. It's part of the essay. So, I don't know, that's where I'm up to for now. Let me know what you think under the comments because I'm very interested to see your perspective on specifically this. Because if there's any of you out there, I'm not going to, get angry or something. I want to literally just, see. And the only reason I get, annoyed with some people's comments is because they're stupid. Just think about what you're commenting, just don't write like something crazy or something ridiculous to me. Like ad hominem attack or something. But so I want you to comment under the video, please, because I'd like to really see other perspectives of this. This is only, a few weeks of thinking about this, really. So, it's a young philosophy, you might say. But I still feel that ultimately we do dominate it because we're the conscious ones, right?